Hello and welcome to another Blab with B2B R&D co-founders. I am Ellen Williams, the CEO, and always joined here by...
Craig Yaris, the COO and co-founder, as you said before. I'm repeating myself.
And we're here every Friday, noon Eastern, talking about digital marketing. And although the conversations on Blab do tend to go astray, we do keep them on digital marketing. Today we are talking about blogging. And as the conversations and attendees come in, we'll see where it takes us today. So blogging. I'm going to start with you, Craig. What are your thoughts?
Oh, it's a great thing.
It's a great thing. Okay. Okay. From a strategic point of view, blogging is a great thing. I agree.
From a strategic point of view, from a strategy, a marketing point of view, from oh God, the word just jumped out of my head.
Thought leadership.
Thought leadership. That's exactly where I was going. From all of those angles, people need to be blogging. I've been saying it for years. I don't care what the company is. I don't care. You don't think you have anything to say, but you do. I mean, we're talking 500 words. Get it out there. Talk to your audience. It is, forget the SEO benefits.
You make it sound so easy.
Oh, it is, right? I wish it was easy. It's not easy, but anything worth it isn't easy. How's that? How's that for the,
fine.
yeah.
So I contemplated how to start this Blab, and I was just going to go with blogging is hard. But I opted not to and went with what your thoughts were first. And you know what? It doesn't necessarily have to be hard if that's where your focus is.
Right.
If you are a writer and you thrive, and I know writers that get up every morning and they just write so that they like condition themselves, and that's awesome.
Yes.
When you're a small business person or a business of 2 or 3 people, and everything else that it takes to run a business is part of your everyday to-do list, then time is certainly an element that makes blogging difficult. But I was on a webinar yesterday, and they were talking about creating content, in a sentence blog. And they talked about maintaining high quality being the difficult point. So yeah, I mean, geez, I could talk, I could write my opinion all the time, and we call that social media, right?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
It's the quality, and I think that's where blogging becomes difficult, because I think, yeah, anything worth doing, can be difficult, but anything worth doing needs to be done well. So I think the content needs to have high quality, and I think there's also, the importance of the SEO. Otherwise, no one's even going to see what you're saying.
No, you're absolutely right. I was just going to.
We're both hosts. I got there first.
Well, that came up, and I'm like, oh my God, what is that?
Hello. So, Melanie,
Ellen,
we're talking about blogging and it being difficult in some ways, it being easy in some ways. It's the marriage of the two that makes it successful.
I don't know that there's any easy part of it.
You said, everybody has something to say.
You're right. That doesn't mean it's easy. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. I do think everyone has something to say. I do think there are points of view out there that are contrary, that are, congruent with what we're saying, that take a different tack. And just by that very nature, people should be blogging. You and I read there's a metric ton of information every week, and some of it's good, some of it's not as good, but we're still reading it. We're still finding it. So I think as long as you're, here in regards to quality, you're going to get read, you're going to get found. And there's just no downside to it, actually. I don't think.
So Melanie, let me get you in the conversation. Craig made a point that, blogs can be opinions and people have their experiences that they can bring to a blog, but not all blogs are opinions. Some of them are industry information and researched. And so are there places where you can find good content that you can then morph into and create your own? So I'm not talking about retweeting or sharing. I'm talking about, article A and article B. Okay, I'm creating article C, but it's sort of generated by other content.
Mm-hmm. I think that's the most responsible way for a brand to, before they do a blog, get the resources they want to pull from, so that they can at least give 3 references to why they think the way they do, or why they're guiding their readers in a certain direction. I think a lot of people, especially brands, they're held up on the barrier of, do they use first person narrative or third person, where first person is I, me, us, we. The other is, you're talking as if, you're the encyclopedia mentioning it. And I think the first person narrative always works best, because that's what people want to. It's easier to read. People can connect with the first person in a blog. There are more and more articles written in first person, but you can't write in first person unless the reader is clear who wrote it. So you have to have your byline on it. If you're writing in the first person and a personal name isn't on it, it's, let's say it's Target, the store Target, that won't work. So I think small brands especially are torn when they want to begin a blog. They're like, well, I don't want to talk in first person because I want to give the impression that we're bigger than 1, 2, or 3 people. And, I don't want it to sound too personalized, but that's really the best way to start. And then when you draw from other content, that way your readers will know that you actually researched a little bit, that you just didn't have this conversation with your kids around the kitchen table.
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. And certainly, Craig and I write the B2B R&D blog, and we've had lots of conversations about the goal of the content, the purpose of the blog, the strategy around it. And one thing we decided was to not write in first person. And the reason for that, not necessarily for us to look like a bigger brand, but for us to make sure we're writing to the buyer or professional persona we've identified, and so that they can see themselves in the piece. So we sort of took an opposite approach to that, as opposed to people seeing it as, the experiences we've had. And probably 70% of our content is based on research we've done, not necessarily our own personal experiences. So we try to give it an advice kind of feel. If I'm reading it, I can see myself in it more than I'm seeing the writer in it. And I think that goes to what you said, when you have those research pieces as opposed to the personal experience. But I think there's certainly room for both.
I think that both are very important, the researched and the personal experience. I think Ellen, we're actually, and I won't give away the topic, but we're sort of throwing a blog back and forth right now that is a bit of the personal experience take. And I think those sorts of blogs are as important as the well-researched ones. because in order to have that thought leadership, you need to take a position. If I write a blog that says, I read X and I read Y and I read Z and, maybe T, I don't know, all I'm doing is summarizing, and that's not worthwhile to me as a reader. I want a position. If you're a thought leader, if you're an expert, I want your opinion. So
you don't think you can create a position without using the word I?
You can, but I do think that people look to, if they're reading the B2B R&D blog, they're looking to us and we are an I. Together, we're an I.
Right. A brand.
Right. The brand is the I. And I don't necessarily agree with, I'm sorry, Melanie, about Target being able to blog, because that is the brand. Ellen and I blog as a brand.
And they can use the we talk, the
Right.
we talk, where it doesn't sound like a third person wrote it, like a phantom journalist.
Okay.
So when you're talking, we is still like that first person.
Right. And we do that we sometimes, because I think I think it's so important to have that personal investment.
Plus, when people get to know how you can summarize, let's say you do summarize a difficult topic, if you can present something in an easier way for the audience to understand it, they will go to you to say, gosh, they explain it perfectly. I'm going to go to them because they explain it where I understand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And that's the thing.
So far on the topic of blogging, we've got the personal blog from experience, right? We've got the thought leadership, which sort of crosses that, and the advice kind of approach where the reader sees themselves. And then we have here's everything I read, and it blew my mind, so I'm going to simplify it for everyone. And so you do become sort of the filter for some of the more complex content that's out there, even if it's not necessarily your opinion. You are sort of, bringing it down and taking a complex issue down and simplifying it. So there's a blog. I'm getting confused because it's blab and blog, right? So my brain is going back and forth. So a blog really, besides the fact that you have multiple goals and things of that nature, you also have multiple approaches to it. There's certainly not just, when people talk blog, it's not just one thing.
No, absolutely. And people, as you mentioned earlier, Ellen, you and I have had lots of conversations on tone of voice, on content, on audience, on strategy, on the who, what, where, when, why, if you will, of what the blog is even going to be.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of companies, brands, people, small, large, in the middle, they don't start with that. They just start with and I remember years ago meeting with a client when I did that, and it was basically, we need a blog. Well, why do you need a blog? Because everybody has one. We need one. What are you going to say?
I'm going to make a movie.
Yeah.
Right? They make a movie out of my blog.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to have a blog and it's going to go viral.
Right. Right.
Okay, why? Let's back up. We need to start out with the buyer persona. Who are you talking to? How do you want to talk to them? How do you normally talk? All of those things need to go into your blog, I think. So it's easy. Start it. Go to wordpress.com or .org. I never remember which is the self-hosted, which is the free. They host, and you've got a blog. It's done.
So I'm gonna say there's a lot of places to blog, right?
Yeah.
Tumblr.
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn,
Medium, LinkedIn. Yep. Yeah.
I think one thing to be very clear about when you use those platforms is to see where the copyright is held. Some platforms, they get the copyright, or at least they get the shared copyright. So if you're blogging from a thought leadership standpoint, and you want to be able to retain the copyright of your content, just take a double look at some of those platforms and make sure.
Absolutely. I think all the ones we mentioned, though, and I am not offering any legal advice whatsoever. There's no legal advice being tendered by this blab. But I believe the ones you mentioned.
We should just start a blab with that disclaimer.
That's funny. We should, maybe. It'll be scrolling on the bottom like a TV commercial. Yeah. But I think Tumblr, Medium, LinkedIn Pulse, they make it clear that they do not exercise any rights over your content. Your content is yours. But I wouldn't say the same. I know that was a big issue. Was it? I don't remember who. No, it was
Facebook had some copyright issues.
No, it was actually, they never really did. People thought they did. And then one of those Facebook hoaxes went around that said, if you don't post this, they own the copyright kind of thing. That was a hoax. But I think it was something like Pinterest or Tumblr or one of those at one point was vague in who owned it. But they quickly changed that after the outcry. Yeah. But almost all of them, I believe, again, no legal advice is being offered by this blog.
So any special tools when it comes to blogging?
Well, you can have, if you have a, to clarify what Craig said, the WordPress.com is free. WordPress.org is the hosted where that's called self-hosting.
Yeah, it's still free. The software itself is still free, but thank you.
Yeah, and and if you go with the WordPress.org, you can buy themes.
And you can actually buy your domain, and they'll host it for like $12 a year.
Yeah. And and if you have, if you have a blog that's already within your website, then everything else you do, everything else you contribute to, like on LinkedIn or Tumblr or Pinterest or Google Plus or whatever, that's an addition too. And sometimes what I usually do, this is why I don't blog a lot, is because I'll test my stuff everywhere else. And if it's good, then I put it on my blog, because I do. It's like I do these little test runs, and so I'm like, well, that got some positive attention or some comments going, and then I can include other people's thoughts when I give my main summary of whatever it is.
That's interesting.
And then with the blog on my website, it's going to be there. So I don't want to really mess anything up. So that's why I mess it up somewhere else.
See, that's interesting, because almost 99.999% of the people that blog do it the other way. The blog will go to their website first, and say a week later it's going to LinkedIn as a LinkedIn Pulse. It's going to Medium. It's going to Tumblr, maybe. I don't know. Basically, because the SEO factor, we want the blog traffic to go to our blog. And that is I'd say overall, the main reason people are going to blog is to drive traffic to their website.
Well, I was watching what's his name? Baczynski. I can spell his last name, Bachynnski. And Josh Baczynski, and he was doing, he follows Google and John Mueller, and he's up on the panda, penguin, pigeon, and hummingbird. He's up on all that stuff, and he was saying that people don't go to your website for the blog. The blog is just additional fluff, interesting fluff. You have to still keep it interesting and informative, but if you expect people to go to your website for your blog, they don't. They go to your website because they found you in search because of your product or service. And that the blog is supposed to serve as, just an extra item at the buffet.
See, and I'm actually, I think I'm going to disagree a bit, mainly because it is an index page within Google.
It is an index page.
It will drive traffic that way, but by having the blog posted to the website and then shared on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Google Plus and Pinterest as links back, you are going to drive traffic that way.
Yes, you'll drive traffic that way, but people don't find you first through your blog. I mean, you have to go fetch them to bring them in through sharing your blog.
Yes, but the SEO will, if it's done, if the blog's written well, that we've got one or two of our blogs that come up before our main website within search. So it is pulling traffic in.
It does.
And I see Lighthouse Web MS. I don't know who that is specifically. I don't have a name there. You're disagreeing. What are you disagreeing with?
Feel free to jump on. We have another.
By all means.
But yeah, I tend to agree with Craig on this one. I think it offers more content on the website, and more of availability to be found through searches.
It's a signal it is a signal to the search engines that you are current, because every time you blog, that's new content, and then you alert the search engines like, hey, something's new over there, let's go look. So there's value in it. I don't want to be misinterpreted that
Melody's never coming back again. Melody's fun with us now.
So welcome Rochelle, and what side of the coin are you taking?
Well, the thing about it is that if your blog is put together well and you're doing the SEO, it's going to drive a ton of traffic. That's the whole idea behind content marketing. And yes, you do have to go out there and promote the blog content. But let me tell you something. I have had blog posts that we have posted that I didn't even share them on Facebook. I didn't put them anywhere. And they showed up in the Google index within 5 to 10 minutes.
Yep.
So you don't have to go out there and promote it. Now, is it going to make it better? Of course. But you don't have to go out there and promote every single blog post to get traffic from it.
Yeah.
No, I completely
I was
agree.
talking more of the mindset. The mindset.
Melody's never talking to us again.
Well, the mindset is, I'm sorry, my husband is ringing my phone. The mindset is basically just, when people are searching for a product or a service, there's 3 different buying models of where they are. 1, they know that they need it. 2, they're trying to figure out what they need. And then 3, they're doing price comparisons. So if your blog touches on all 3 of those, it's not necessarily a mindset. It's more of a, where am I going to go for more information? They're doing research. And if they can come across your blog post and satisfy that question that they've got to do their research, they're going to look at you for the product and service. So it goes back and forth both ways, because my clients get a ton out of my blog and they're already clients of mine, right. But I also get clients from my blog on a weekly basis.
However,
she's going to stand strong.
And
she is not wavering at all, is she?
No, I am. I'm a soft marshmallow. I can be squeezed and smushed. I can, and it doesn't hurt. I don't hurt. It's I don't get offended because you don't even live near me. So you can't egg my house or slash my tires. So I'm perfectly safe. But no. If information is really important, I don't advise you put it. I mean, I wouldn't stress it on a blog so much. The blog, in my opinion, is the additional information. If the information is really, really important, it should be part of a page, because people search on the website for a page with that specific information because they only have like 3 to 5 minutes maybe. And a blog, when you go down, because it's chronological, either they're going to have to scroll down. Let's say you have 100 posts. And if you're looking on, and if you have the side panel where it says, our 10 most recent posts, they're not going to find what they want because it's not there in their page.
I see where you're going with that. You're talking about the blog as a whole.
Yes,
You're not talking about individual articles.
We're
And
talking
yeah,
about individual
if-
articles, I think.
Yeah, articles
Yeah.
are blogs, blogs are articles, but and then if the person still has to spend time on your website to maybe type in a keyword, they're looking like, oh, how do I search this site for what I want? That's way too long. The majority of people are going to like, I can't find their information. So the blog posting or article posting, from what I know in my professional world, is the extra item on the buffet, but your real important items need to be those pages. So if there is a really good price comparison, make a page, make it a drop down, just make it a page, because then people go through menu items quicker and more likely than they will try to scroll through your blog, especially when you have.
Well, we do web design, plus we also do SEO. So I'm working on both sides of the platform here. And if a site is well put together, you will have your service pages that are there. Those are the core root. But then what you're doing is you're creating blog posts that emphasize your pages. So what that does is it pulls up your pages. It also pulls up the blog posts. So rather than having one page on a service page for, let's say, dog kennels, I've got one page for dog kennels, but then I've got 60 other blog posts that talks about what dog kennels are best for dogs. And that helps build me up for dog kennels.
Yeah.
So
for your internal links, hopefully you'll internally link on those pages, like where they can get that information.
But not just
But
internal.
Google
That's
looks
building
at
up
that
Google.
as
Yep.
right. Google looks at that as my website is so
Garbage.
saturated with dog kennels because now I have 60 pages, which a blog post is nothing but a page anyway.
Right.
I mean, seriously, but I have 60 different pages talking about dog kennels. The only difference is the blog posts are usually indexed quicker by Google than a page. A page might take 5 to 7 days, where a blog post goes up within minutes.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
I think we're also,
set up
if I take everything I've heard, it's a combination of make sure that your services or your product is very well promoted and explained on the page of your website, and make sure that the blog is within the website. So if I'm on, a search engine looking for content and I just wind up at a quote unquote blog, right? The home page is the blog. And you're right, Melanie, sometimes it's just, paragraph with headlines. That's a blog. And I have one of those. I write a personal blog and there's no services or anything around it. So yes, there's nothing further. But if you look at the B2B R&D blog, it has that page, but each of the posts are individual pages, and it's within our menu structure. So you don't have to go searching through the blog. You can easily pick those pull downs. So I think the best of both worlds is really having that blog within your website and having your website designed well, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There was a question on the side there regarding any good tips for an SEO-friendly blog title. So I think that's an interesting question, because I know you and I, Ellen, have gone back and forth with that as well on blog titles. And before, I guess, I weigh in, please, by all means, because I will weigh in.
And and unfortunately, I will be weighing out because I've got an appointment that I have to attend. Yeah. So I'm going to wait. My phone's going to go off any minute. But as I depart, we are still friends. We are all still friends. We just, maybe I didn't express myself quite.
I'm not worried, Melanie.
The best.
I hope you're not upset.
No. No. Goodness gracious, no. No, it's just I'm glad that we have different opinions, because then that shows that all of us are really in here.
There you go.
We're really in here thinking about it. We're just not willy-nilly about what we're doing.
Right.
And we know our own audience, our own brand, our own services, our own products that well. And that is how more people should be. They should feel more comfortable when they see these kind of discussions go on, instead of a lot of people going around
every alert possible to get you to where you need to be.
Yeah, so there's my cue. I got to get in the car and fight some traffic. Thanks, you
All right.
guys. And
See you soon.
don't talk bad about me when I'm gone because I'll watch the replay, okay?
Promise.
Promise.
Okay, see you guys.
Thanks. So, Rochelle,
Yes.
would you have any tools, since you're a web designer and, successful blogger? Are there any favorite tools that you have that you use to make blogging easier?
There are quite a few.
Okay.
One thing first, before, I'm not dodging your question, but Mr. Wonderful did ask me, any good tips about a blog title. And I guess the best way that I can explain this is the way that I explain it to our clients. If you're a drinker and you're fixing a mixed drink, if you're doing Jack and Coke, you want more Jack than Coke. So when you're thinking about your blog titles, think about your keyword saturation inside the title. And you want to try to come up with your keywords need to be at the beginning, but make it user friendly, of course, make it to where it makes sense. Mm-hmm. But put in a phrase like what somebody would actually type in the search engine to actually get what they're finding in that blog post. And then that will make it more meaningful for them. I hope that answered your question, Mr. Wonderful.
So I'm gonna piggyback on that. What do you think of the posts that start with 5 secrets to 10 best ways? Everyone talks about those being, great titles, and I tend to steer clear of them.
I'm bored of them.
Yeah, and everybody else is too. And they're a great go-to for a lot of people that, they're like, oh, what the hell do I call this? So, and that's what everybody kind of goes to. And it's better if you don't do that, because I tell you what, people aren't typing in 10 ways to blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And 5 ways to blah, blah, blah. Now if I was trying to, let's say, market my website, I would say, how do I market my website? That's what I would type in. How do I market my website online? Exactly. So we might put, marketing your website online isn't hard. And then that way you would come up for, those types of things and come up with a couple tips in there. Is that kind of what you guys have? I mean, I've watched a few of your blabs on here, but, so I haven't memorized all the stuff you guys have covered, but that's probably very close to what you guys have already discussed before.
So I don't think we've talked too much about blogs.
So. No.
I mean, internally, really? Craig and I talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, on Blab, I don't think blog has come up really in any of the previous topics, which is sort of why we picked it this time to jump into a new topic. But and I totally agree with you on the subject line. If the SEO value has to do with more than just the title, it has to do with all the rest of the content on the page. Absolutely. So a terrific SEO title needs to be relevant, not just, wow, this will be a great title, but my content has nothing to do with it. Then it's not an SEO title.
That's
exactly. There's no point in doing it if nobody's ever going to find the damn thing. I mean, you got to remember,
Google, as a semantic search engine, they're comparing the content of the blog or the page with the SEO title. So if, for instance, you have, Rochelle, a bunch of these pages about dog kennels, but they all talk about, ceramic mugs, you're not getting found. Google's looking at you, and you're actually going to end up in Google jail.
So that's the saturation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's sort of that old school, stuffing keywords in it. It doesn't work. You need to have that, marketing your website online, the title, then the content talks about it, but in a conversational tone. And in your meta description, you've got the keywords in there that you want to be found for. So it's sort of all of those things together are what's going to make, I think, for a good SEO-friendly blog title.
Hold on a minute. Meta description, Google has gone back and forth in saying that they do not look at meta description. I believe that they do, but it's more important that you make that user-friendly. Because when people are going through the search engine and they're looking, they don't see your blog post, they don't see your web page, they don't see anything. Right. They see that meta description. That's your 156 character opportunity to get them to click it. So make it meaningful. Definitely.
And you're right. Google does go back and forth. I believe they are. And I believe they do use it. I do. And they haven't proven they don't. So until they prove
Right.
to me they don't, they do.
I agree. I agree. I'm right there with you.
Yeah. So Google, if you're watching,
you have
come
to
on.
take what Google says. We always say that we pray to the Google gods, but we take what Google says with a grain of salt. And we kind of say, okay, well, you said this, but you're doing this. So I'm not really going to take seriously whatever you say. We're just going to kind of look at what's working.
Yes, exactly. And that's another good point.
So do as I do, not as I say.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes, there's that.
They break a lot of their own rules.
But I do think, but Rochelle, part of what you said sort of leads to the idea of testing. You have to test different headlines sometimes, and
Yes.
where keyword placement is. And I think if you don't know what people would be searching for to find you, there is no SEO. So you could call it.
One cool tool that we include on all of our websites, because we build a lot of WordPress websites. So we include the Yoast SEO tool on all of our websites. Because what that does is as that person's creating their content on their website, they're actually able to go through and they can see exactly what they need to do on that post to make it better.
Yes.
And then we train them on how to use it.
The little green, I forgot what colors they are. Green, yellow, red,
Yellow,
I guess.
red, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
They don't like that way, but yeah. We use that as well. It was something when I had done that a few years ago, I always recommend it because it outlines it very simply for people. It's one of the ways that blogging becomes a little bit easier. They help you with all of those things.
Exactly.
But if you don't know your audience, those keywords may not matter. You may think they're searching for, online marketing, but they're searching for internet, not online. So
right, you have to look at analytics, and you have to look at, you have to take all of that into, into consideration. And, many clients that are, going towards and trying to do it all themselves, we really have to kind of school them on this stuff. But a lot of times with our clients, we're kind of helping them. We're working kind of side by side with them, and we're kind of offering suggestions and how to do it and things like that. So there's a lot to learn. And, a lot of times people are busy building their business. They don't have time for this crap. They really don't.
Right.
And that's the truth.
Yeah, we said that earlier. If you're, if you're a prophetic writer, did I say that right? Okay, good. And you're just gonna, you love it, then more power to you, and and I think we've all experienced this. Sometimes you just sit there going, oh, what am I going to write about? And other days you sit there and it's flowing and you can't believe the amount of content you're creating. Where does this come from? Why doesn't this happen every day? So with that in mind, certainly, as you said, if you hire someone to do your blog for you and that's what they do, then awesome. If you're trying to include it in your, all the things you're doing, then, it's going to be more difficult because time constraints, and maybe you aren't, a terrific writer. So my question to you is, what about frequency? Is there
I don't recommend I don't recommend like us writing their blog posts for them. What we do is we kind of say, just jot down some notes, write what because we want to take their authority. Now we can write the article for them, but we need to take their stuff and then we need to go ahead and put it out there. Now we'll write the articles, but we're not writing them from scratch. Of course. So I never recommend, don't use ghostwriters. Yeah, it doesn't work. It just really doesn't. Okay, so repeat your question again. I apologize.
What's the frequency? So,
okay.
And I absolutely agree with you. Person say, great, go write my blog. But if I'm not the one having to sit there and make it beautiful and do the writing, then, that's okay too. Let someone else, quote unquote, as you said, sort of, put the finishing touches on. But so if I have someone doing that on my behalf, then I suspect my frequency will be better. If I don't, and I'm relying on myself, then my frequency won't. Is there a good, bad, ugly? If you can't do it every month, don't bother. Is there? What would you say on the topic of frequency?
The key is to keep it consistent. That's more important than I think anything else. Now, granted, if you have the time and you have the staff to go in and write what you have for, 3 times a week, that's great. But
Right.
think about the fact that you also have to write on other platforms to create links coming into your website. For instance, if you're like a B2B, and Craig, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you're a B2B, you need to be posting stuff on LinkedIn, coming back into your website, as well as stuff going into your website. So a lot of times what we'll do is we'll kind of come up with a theme for the month. And then we post, if it's a business to business, then we post a blog post on their website. And then we also have another blog post that's complementary to that one that we're putting on LinkedIn and other platforms, the business to community, the all these other places that you can put these articles on, linking back to the article that we built up on their website. So even if you're only putting maybe one blog post on your website per month, you're also helping to promote it through other blog posts that you're putting on other websites like LinkedIn, business to community, all those different places. Does that make sense?
Sure,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So
Right.
what I hear you say is do the best you can.
Mhm.
And that
Yeah.
if you can't do weekly, but you can do monthly, then do monthly and optimize it in as many different places as appropriate for your audience.
Right. Just keep it consistent. So if you can only go once a month, keep it once a month. And if you do get that flow, you know what I mean? If you do get that flow and just stuff's just pouring out of you and you're like, where in the hell did this come from?
Right.
Then go ahead and write them. Keep them in your little thing and start scheduling those for months when you don't have time, and
Yep.
then use those then. Now, of course, unless it's time specific,
Right.
and it's, I mean, you can't put those off, but if it's not time specific and it's more evergreen type content, definitely go ahead and put those back and save them for when, you're completely covered up and don't have time to think, much less write something.
So let me ask you another question then, from the standpoint of what you just said, the time specific versus evergreen. Do you think blogs should have both?
Yes, always. Always have both. That evergreen content is going to be good stuff that you can keep around all the time. But your more time sensitive stuff is going to be the stuff that's going to hit Google, and it's the stuff that's going to be up there. Now, one thing you'll want to do is make sure that you keep that time sensitive stuff updated. So, let's say you're writing something about maybe a Google, I would write about this and everybody else wouldn't, but a Google algorithm update. Okay, let's say that. Then what you would do is, as that algorithm is changing, then you would go back and you would update it. So that way it's always the most updated, time sensitive type of blog post, but yet you still have all the links and the kudos that you've built up from previous editions. You just put like this has been updated as of blah, blah, blah. And then you put the new date, but don't change your link and don't change the title.
Right.
So kind of think about that ahead of time. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll do like a 2016 Google updates. And then I'll go through and I'll make a blog post like that. And then I'll update it throughout the year. So that way I keep all those good kudos and the good link juice that's coming off of it.
Do you identify in the blog the content that's been updated, or do you just update the blog and somewhere note that this blog was updated, but you don't really see what was versus what it is now?
Right, exactly. And then what I do is I just change the date of the publish. So the publish date changes, but everything else stays the same. So you have your content changes and then you have your publish date changes.
But so my question is,
just
do
say
you
that it was
identify? Do you identify, or you just say it was updated? You don't sort of put a new paragraph saying, here's what's new?
Sometimes I do. It depends on the content. I mean, if it's no longer relevant, in other words, keyword stuffing was great, 5 years ago, and now it can really get you in trouble. So of course, I'm not going to keep keyword stuffing on a blog post because I would be so scared that somebody would think that would actually work. So I would remove it and actually come against it and say keyword stuffing no longer works, if that makes sense at all.
Absolutely.
I had
Yeah.
never really contemplated actually changing the content of an older blog. That's a interesting.
And what it
interesting
does is
thought.
it makes it more, you still keep all those kudos and all that good link juice that you had off the original post, but yet you can repurpose it and republish it.
Mm-hmm.
And repurposing, you add video, you can add an infographic, you can add additional images, you can do all kinds of stuff. And if you can make your content stronger versus coming up with new stuff all the time, you're actually going to win out at the end than just trying to recreate the wheel every single time.
Very interesting.
Definitely. Yeah, yeah.
Getting an education on blogging. Welcome, Craig.
Hey, Craig, how are you?
Thanks for having me in here.
Yeah. So, what thoughts do you have on blogging?
Well, I was chatting a little bit with Craig in the sidebar here, and I think that I have a problem right now that's not unlike anybody else. I am starting from scratch. I have no blog posts. However, I have no time. I literally have no time and money. We have a startup that we're bootstrapping right now. And my big pain point this week, we have an intern that's going to start helping us curate some content. So that's one step in the right direction. But literally, I've been driving myself crazy this week with this mountain of content that I've got to create, both for guest posting on other people's blogs as well as writing content for ours.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that I can't get my head wrapped around what are 10 hashtags that a dentist would use with, our startup is about social media graphics. So I have a lot of the content that could write itself in theory, but I have two problems. One is it's not my sweet spot. And two is we just don't have money and time to throw at the problem. So I'd love any perspective of, maybe there is not a solution for this and I'm just complaining, but I've looked at just, going out and having guest posts come in, for example, because places like Social Media Examiner have built an entire platform around that of people coming in and having great content.
They built their platform.
So,
they built their platform internally with their own content. Only now, within the last year, let's say, did they start utilizing those guest posts so heavily.
Okay.
They built up their audience. I mean, Mike Stelzner basically was writing just about everything when it started.
Okay.
So and Rochelle, you were also shaking your head no. The guest posts are not the way I think you're going to build up your blog because it's not you.
Okay.
Right.
It isn't. It's not you. It's not your brand. It's just somebody else trying to do what you're trying to do by guest posting on other places. They want to build themselves. I'll gladly guest post on your website. I could care less about you.
Right. Okay.
I'm doing it for me.
Okay. So that's
such a good guy, Craig.
Right, Craig, you need to be the authority. You need to be the authority. Don't give that authority to somebody else. You need to be it.
okay.
Even if it's an employee.
I understand what you're saying. Just for clarity, this isn't a personal blog.
No, yeah.
For me, it's just about the traffic. So
it's not.
If we eliminate that pillar, what about me guest posting on and leveraging other people that have platforms or a lot of followers? Is that acceptable as well? Or a good strategy, rather?
There's an art to that, though. I mean, you can't just jump on board and start posting. You need to develop a relationship with that other blogger so that it doesn't look like you're coming in to overtake their audience. And then you have to have a place to send them. So if anyone comments on our blog, where the anticipation is that they're going to be contributing something of value to the topic, and then if there's a link, they're going to link people to learn more. With whatever content they have. But if you're utilizing another blog as a guest, where are you driving people?
And here's the thing, Fred.
Content.
If you have time to guest post, then you damn well have time to do it for yourself.
Okay. However, I will say the challenge, or maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way, we don't have any traffic. So as much as I would like to think that if I create the Shangri-La of a beautiful epic post, if nobody sees it, it doesn't matter. And the only channels I have right now are sharing within our own channels. So I know that probably the answer is just be patient and build up that content and get a following. But Like to I'm sorry, I don't know what your name is. B2B.
Ellen, I'm Ellen.
Oh, sorry, Ellen. I was going to say to your point, like, as far as getting where are we placing them, we have 3,000 people right now in our graphics app. So that's actually what I'm trying to get them to. It's not me positioning myself as an influencer, but we are a startup that helps people automate their graphics for blog posts. Mm-hmm. So it's a seamless fit of what we can talk about, but this is a very timely conversation. I appreciate it because I just need some people to say, okay, you're not thinking about this right, and put me on the right track, if that makes sense.
Well, I would also suggest, outside of blogging, although this is the topic for today, you need to find groups of people who are your perfect audience. You're sitting right next to one. Right now. I mean, she's doing blogging for multiple clients, and you have a product that could be perfect for her. Right. So I would almost suggest, instead of trying to create blogs that the search engines are going to drive traffic to, I would hone in on where my audience is. They could be groups on LinkedIn or groups on Facebook, and small pieces of advice. And no, it doesn't necessarily have to be about you, but about what your product does. And I'm not saying sell it. I'm saying, right. Color wheel information, or, graphics versus images versus photos. If you start being the expert, they'll come to you and utilize your product.
So, absolutely. I agree 110%, because that's what I've been doing for the past 3 months. But what I'm realizing is that I have no more time for that one-to-one interaction. So the reason I want to launch a blog is to leverage the evergreen content and speak to a larger audience and bring them into our world, if that makes sense.
So by writing blogs that you're talking about, Ellen had mentioned Color Wheel or whatever it is, and then sharing that on Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitter and Pinterest, very visual, maybe even Google+. You're now starting to get
places where they hang out.
Yeah.
Okay.
You're now going to start to build up your name. And until I start to see you, I'm never going to even know to go to your website.
Right.
So by putting the blog on your website and then sharing links to it with other information, you're now going to start to drive traffic.
I think at the end of the day, what I'm feeling right now, it's the content generation, or the editorial calendar, or the creation of all that stuff. That, I'm building the product and building layouts and designing things and doing support tickets and different stuff like that. So I think that
I'm going to interrupt you. I read an article today on how to find great content. And one of the things it said was, look at the outbound emails. So those support tickets, what are the answers in those support tickets? And that could be a great source of your own content.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What are you telling your clients
Expand on
already?
Your frequently asked questions. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Expand on those
frequently asked questions. Yeah. What do people have trouble with all the time? What do people ask you over and over and over again? Those are blog posts.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And they don't have to be long. And that's, we have 6 minutes left to the blab, but that's another conversation that we haven't even talked about. How long, is a blog post? And when we contemplated that, when we launched B2B R&D, we went with, our blog is called The Long and the Short of It, because sometimes we write really long ones and sometimes we write really short ones. And this way, the Google Analytics will help us decide whether, which is really better for us. And our Google Analytics are showing us the ones we promote more are better. So it's not really the long or the short.
Yeah, maybe I just need to start copying and pasting my comments, because I feel like I'm fast and furious when I'm having a dialogue with people, but when I sit down to write it out in a format, for some reason I get writer's block. So
I totally get that.
And what we've actually started to do is, when this blab is over and we get the recording, because we're the hosts, we go through and we'll pull like a 2-minute piece, and then we'll put it on the website as a blog post and then transcribe it so the text is below it. So in the hour today, we've probably created 3 or 4 blog posts.
Right.
So
Well,
you might
I
consider hosting a blab and just let the conversation go, and you probably would get several pieces of content out of that
Yeah.
conversation.
Absolutely.
Cool. Well, I hope I didn't derail what you were chatting about, but this is like this has been a big pain point for me this past couple weeks, and I'm just starting to feel the weight of all that content that I want to create, but just can't. So
And the bottom line is, you already have, like you just said, go back
Right.
all those support tickets, and there's your content. All you have to do is maybe tweak it or massage it a little so it talks to, an audience reading a blog versus the person you answered.
cool. Well, thank you so much for answering my question and giving me a little bit of clarity. That's definitely what I needed, so I appreciate that.
Our pleasure.
Good
Thanks
luck
for hopping
Craig,
on.
with your product.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Hey, wait, Craig,
yeah.
before you jump off, at least give us, the website.
Yeah, sure. It's it's called Relay. I haven't been on Blab the past couple months, or about the month or two, because I kind of went went into a hole and just we were focused on product, and I came out of that, realized we had to market it, but I've been around.
Oh yeah, right. That thing called marketing.
Yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I'm trying to crank up the marketing machine for sure, but it's called Relay. It's relaythat.com, and our tagline is graphics that design themselves. We're truly trying to make you add your picture and your content, your text, and we're even a little teaser here. We're making a scraper that will actually point at a blog and pull all that content automatically into our software. And at the click of a button, you have social graphics for all platforms, including your blog. So we're almost
Craig,
there.
You need SEO. Get in touch with somebody.
Yeah, you'll actually we have an SEO feature where you type in your hashtags and your keywords. Your
Website needs SEO. Get in touch with somebody, because whenever I went there, your title tag just says Relay. Well,
Okay.
Relay what? Yeah. So get some title tags put on those pages and stuff like that for you, and that will also help drive traffic to your website.
Cool. We always, one of our mantras is eat our own dog food, and sometimes it's hard to keep up for sure. So cool. But
Yeah.
I'll reach out to you guys, and thanks again. I appreciate you helping me get clear on that.
No problem.
Yeah,
Cool.
thanks for coming
Good
on.
luck, Craig.
Thanks. Good luck.
So Rochelle,
Yes.
we'll offer the same opportunity, your website as well.
Oh, it's lighthousewebdesigns.com. And you could go see it. We've got a blog on there. Then we've also got our service pages. I'm a little behind on my blog, of course, but I've been keeping up my client's blog, which is more important than my own. So yeah, definitely go over there, kind of show some love on some of the comments, if you guys don't mind.
Terrific. And thank you also
thank you
for
so
popping
much
on
for
board.
having me. I appreciate it.
Great.
This is my first one to participate in.
Oh, yay. Yay.
All right.
Yeah, you've done that for a couple people
Yeah.
that they decided to come on board. So
Yeah,
thanks.
yeah. I've been wanting to do it. My internet's been a little slow, so I've been a little hesitant on getting on here. I didn't want it to be a bad experience for anybody. So, but thanks for having me, and I look forward to your future blabs.
Excellent.
Thank you, Rochelle. Every Friday.
Have a good day.
Yeah.
Take care.
And speaking of future blabs, yep, Craig, you were on that. We are here every Friday at noon Eastern, B2B R&D. We offer advice and information for professional marketers. We have our unique search engine for the content that we create called Research, and that's subscription-based. First 30 days is free. Give us a try, b2brnd.com. Thank you all for joining us. I am Ellen Williams, CEO and co-founder of B2B R&D, always pleasantly associated and accompanied by
Craig Yaris, the COO and co-founder of B2B R&D.
Yeah, thanks everybody for joining us.
You.
And hopefully we'll see you all next week.
Take care.